Can you point to one single catalyst that put you on this mission to helping people achieve their dreams?
Yeah, I think when my mum kicked me out of home when I was 15, really. I think I'd never been asked what my dream is when I was young. It was always what am I going to do when I grow up, not what do I want to problem do I want to solve. And so I was never asked what my dream was. I was just asked what I would do, as a job. So I think when I was, out there in the world for the first time and realized that I didn't have a dream, that was probably the catalyst to doing what I'm doing today. If that hadn't happened to me, if I hadn't had that difficult time, if I hadn't had that difficult process of trying to start a business with no money, with no experience, with an education that taught me biology but didn't tell me how to handle money, I think that was the catalyst probably for me.
And what gave you the idea to grab a microphone and go out on the streets and interview strangers?
That was kind of a process, I guess. I think I started going on social media maybe 5 years ago. And the primary reason was I'd sold my company, I'd retired, I didn't need to earn money anymore, but I was bored and I wanted to be useful and I wanted to be seen. And I think that's quite a normal human instinct to be useful and to be seen. So I went on social media to I've got this knowledge in business. I had no money and I've made it. And I thought, right, I'll just go on social media and try and answer people's questions and give them help. And it kind of snowballed really, because as I started to help people, I realized that, I could only help one person at a time. Social media, helped me then maybe reach 20 people that were listening on the live. And then that 20 people turned into 400 people. I mean, right now, between the two channels, I've got over 2,000 people listening in. So slowly it built up. And I think I remember there was a change on the TikTok algorithm and system that allowed people who were listening to give you money. So they can gift you. So if someone likes what you're saying, they can give you money. And I remember the first time that function got turned on, because when I closed my live on TikTok, I earned £150. And I
Wow.
remember thinking, I'm a millionaire and I haven't done this to make money. And now I've made money from the people that have been listening to me giving advice and decided to gift me. I should give this money away. And so what I actually did initially, I didn't go and film it, but I met someone I was going to the supermarket to get some lunch, and the person filling up the counter, I just said to them, do you have a dream? And she told me this incredible story about her dream. And I thought to myself, wow, I could have easily walked past this person and just ignored them. And I wouldn't have known this incredible dream they have in their mind. And I gave her £100 there and then. And there was no camera at the time. And I left thinking, wow, that was incredible. And I thought, why didn't I film it? Why didn't I film her dream so that I can then share it with people? And maybe that would help them beyond just the little bit of money I gave and a little bit of advice that I gave. So the next time I actually went to a Pizza Express, very glamorous, because I didn't get lunch in the supermarket because I talked to this lady and then I just left. And this time though I filmed it. So as I walked in, I asked the person behind the counter, as what is your dream? And they told me. And then I gave them some money as well. And that this time I recorded it and I put it up online. And yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
Absolutely. You beat me to it with some of those questions I was going to ask you as well, if you remember the very first time. So it's awesome to hear that story of being in the supermarket and then the first time that you actually filmed it on Pizza Express. You also mentioned your business. I want to come on to that as well afterwards in terms of, how you put yourself in this position to be able to do that. But sticking with kind of the beginning of the Help Bank journey here, you've actually received like quite a surprising amount of backlash, given that you are essentially a modern day saint, Simon. You're going out there, you're giving people money, you're making people's dreams come true. Has that surprised you? And how do you handle some of that negative backlash that I've seen you get?
Yeah, I mean, I think that out of the 8 million people that follow me, maybe I get one comment a day that's negative. So, I mean, first of all, you've got to put it into context, right? And I think the negative people, I kind of generally, they fall into kind of three categories. They're either just trolls, they have no profile picture, you don't know who they are, they're not saying who they are. they're just having a bad day, probably. I mean, I don't take it too personally. The second type of, I guess, negative person is they do say who they are, but they've got the wrong end of the stick. So if someone comes on my live for the first time and they hear me saying I'm giving away money, maybe they think, oh, scam, 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 because the world's got very cynical, right? But if you follow me, you'll see I've been doing it every day for 5 years, and I have never charged anyone for help. I'm not selling a course. In fact, I just put a video up on YouTube that's now become the most popular business video on YouTube. It's
Yeah.
all my knowledge free. So it's not me, selling a course. It's not me, pretending to give money away. I'm videoing me doing it, giving the money away, and then I'm actually, helping people, and I haven't charged people a course fee. So after 5 years of doing it, those people are what I call undecided voters. They're people that don't know what I'm doing, and as they follow me and get to know me, they actually often become my biggest fans. Uh,
Yeah.
and then the final, I guess, hate I get are people that don't agree with my philosophy, right? So I believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of people that say no, they can't. That's no, and I'm always like, okay, you've got your opinion, like, but please tag someone you think can't be an entrepreneur, and then they shut up. Like I think it's more a, if you have an opinion on things, there will always be someone that has the exact opposite opinion. Doesn't matter what we say. If you say everyone should love everyone, they're like, well, if we did that, then we need more tension in life. Blah blah. It doesn't matter. You know, so there will always be someone, and often what I've noticed as well as I've got more popular on social media is people are using me to get their own attention. So they'll have a deliberate opposite view to me just to get my attention, to get attention for whatever they're working on, right? So a lot of it, if you have to take into context, I don't believe people should get a mortgage when they're young. So of course, all property people hate me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
talk about how we shouldn't, if you're a successful entrepreneur making so much money as an entrepreneur, do you really need to charge a course to young people to help them? Why not just do it for free? So those people hate me, and that's fine. Like I think it's just part of the course. When you have strong opinions on things, there'll be people that don't like your opinions.
I think there's a very clear personal brand lesson there. And what I would distill that down into one statement is, you stand for something, otherwise you'll fall for everything, right? So you're very clear on your mission and what you stand for. Linked to that, I'm actually going to bring in one of the audience questions that I think just makes sense here. So from Fiona Hammond, she's asking, what did you tell yourself that helped you get through those lowest moments? And what I just want to add to that is your previous answer there was very balanced, was very rational. You've got the context, but of course we're still human. So I can imagine you get affected like most of us. What do you actually tell yourself to get you through those darkest moments?
Yeah, well, I think over the years I have opinions, by the way, that aren't always right. Okay, and I'm definitely up for like debating things and people showing me that I've got an opinion that's wrong, and I evolve and I learn, and I don't think I'm always right. I have seen a lot and done a lot, so I do base a lot of what I believe in on fact and what I've seen in the world. I've also probably done one of the world's biggest human surveys on like what people's dreams are, and I understand what stops people's dreams from happening. I guess, to answer the question directly, it's like I always think about like why I'm doing it, and if I help one person today fulfill their destiny, go for their dream, have a better life, that's generational change I've had by helping one person. So when I have felt down, when people have had a go at me, I think I accept. I've learned to accept that the being famous is a pain in the ass, but I can help a lot of people with the fame that I've built. So
Yeah,
I just have to accept the rough with the smooth,
yeah,
like, and there are days when I'm like, wow, some people really hate me out there. Like, it's odd. And I don't want that in my life. But I also, today, for example, I've got a team of 14 people that help me with this content, by the way. This isn't me on my own. 14 people help me. So today alone, we've had 5 people message us where we've helped them and their lives are better. And they sent us thank you notes or updates. And we have an internal chat in the team and we share that. I mean, that lifts us up.
yeah.
It's
So
like we
healthy.
people, a lot of people will criticize and have a go. They're not in the arena. If they're not in the arena, I kind of think they can't have an opinion. You
Yeah, I
can't
would say
judge someone doing something if you're not in the arena doing it yourself.
it's very easy to criticize the player on the field when you're a spectator of the sport, isn't it?
Exactly,
What I
exactly.
can take away from that is removing that individualistic level and actually zooming out and that more macro view on the mission that you're working towards. So absolutely beautiful, Simon. I love to hear that. I want to dive into a few other things you've already touched on. I'm going to do my best to get through these questions here because there's obviously a lot. So I want to extract as much as I can from you in this very valuable time. So you mentioned that you've already conducted the largest ever survey on what people's dreams are. So one of the questions I actually had was, given that you've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of strangers on the streets, how have people surprised you the most?
I think what surprises me the most is how many people have a dream.
Mm,
I think a lot of the time, like I was in New York recently asking people what their dream is. Having a dream is very common in America, right? It's the American dream is very
yeah.
prevalent. So, I just, there was a guy who was cleaning the bins out, and you could easily walk past him and think, oh, it's just a guy cleaning the bins, like that's a weird job. And then you hear his dream, and it's deep and it's meaningful, and I think normal people are so interesting. There's not enough Hollywood movies done on normal people, like, and people are impressive. And so I think that's the thing that I really love it now. Like I just went on holiday to Amsterdam, and I just kept asking people their dreams, even though I didn't have a camera or anything necessarily on me. I just People come and serve me a coffee. I just want to know,
It's a habit now, you can't
kind
break.
of obsessed. And it's super, super fascinating. People and their stories and their purpose and and the other thing that has surprised me is how many people don't think their dream is possible. They
Mm,
have a dream, but they just kind of was like, I can't do it. Cost of living's too high.
mm.
I'm not that special. People just don't realize how brilliant they are, and
Which,
and so that's the other side of it, which has also surprised me.
which links to the blocker that you mentioned as well. I was going to ask what that biggest blocker is. It's the narratives that we tell ourselves, right? What's the most shocking answer that you've had?
Um, Shocking answer. I I don't know if it's shocking. I think a couple of people have told me their incredible dream, and then I've offered to help them, and then fears stop them doing it, and they won't do it. Um, I mean, there's one person I'm thinking of particularly when I tell this story. I offered them £50,000 to make their dream happen, and they were so scared they didn't do it. And but initially they were like they couldn't do it because they didn't have the money. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, I'll give you the money. Now what? I can't do it because of this. I can't do it because of that. I think that always surprises me
mm.
that people don't just go for it. And I think fear is an interesting thing. Conditioning is an interesting thing. People have been conditioned a bit to not want to be failing, especially in the public eye. People don't want people to know they failed. And I get it, but it also shocks me when you kind of remove the excuses and people still say, I
Yeah,
can't do it right now. People always make excuses for not doing it. And I think that's because the school system has a lot to blame there. I think no one wants to stand out at school and be bullied or teased, or no one wants to look super smart. No one wants to look super stupid. Everyone just wants to be, average. And so I think when you're presented with an opportunity to fund your dream, but people might see you fail and it might not work. People shy away, even though their instinct is to do it, as in they've had that dream.
yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? But I think the more you talk about it, the more influence that you have. At least it's warming people up more and more to the idea. So we're getting
No,
some.
no, but it's blown my mind. I mean, just walking around Amsterdam the last few days, it's like hundreds of people coming up to me and just wanting to take pictures, saying that the content's inspired them, that the individuals in the videos have inspired them. It's got them asking the question, what is their dream? They wondered what they'd say if they bumped into me. It's got people thinking, and it's kind of amazing,
Yeah,
and
that
wonderful at the same time.
could there be a documentary in the works? You're obviously a born entrepreneur. Is there another creative project here?
Oh yeah, well, I've launched a book called "What's Your Dream" with Penguin. My publisher is Penguin, so it's quite exciting. And we are working on a TV show, which should come out next year. That is all about like helping people's dreams happen. So yeah, I mean, I don't. This is my life's work now. This is it. This is it for me. This all I'm going to focus on is trying to help people's dreams happen. And I think there's also a need for a mainstream TV show that teaches people business, because Dragon's Den isn't real. It's not a
Yeah.
very good representation of how it actually works to start a business, a bit distorted. And then you've got The Apprentice, which is really about getting a job. So, what is there on TV in general, in mainstream, to teach people about business? There's nothing. So I'm hopefully going to bring something to the mainstream system that allows people to learn business and do what they love.
That is so exciting. What can you share about that? Is there a name? Is there a title you can give us?
Oh, the name is What's Your Dream? So it's the same theme. So this is actually my book, by the way. What's Your Dream? It's reversed.
Casually placed
Um,
with the camera
but
there.
yeah, no, I got it on the side. No one can see it. Just see the but yeah, the show itself, it's following similar format to my YouTube channel, where we take someone who has a dream and we just follow their journey really, and we help them along the way. But we follow their journey so people can learn how to start a business from nothing. If you've got no money, it's possible, and we kind of share that journey. And we've got a recent video on YouTube that's got 3 million views of someone's story from beginning to end.
Yeah,
It'll just be
amazing.
more of the same really, but YouTube, is great, but we want to see it on mainstream TV too.
And you say mainstream TV, where will this be airing or streaming? Can you share any?
Can't say that yet because it's not signed.
Okay, all right, watch this space, everyone. Okay, do we have a date? You said next year at some
Next
point?
year, yeah, early next year,
Okay, Q1.
hopefully. Don't
Okay,
hold me
fingers
to it. I
crossed.
start
Let's
Elon
not
Musk saying
just
that we're going to have self-driving cars by 2024, and we haven't. So
delaying it. Okay.
I don't want to get myself into trouble. But yeah, that's the plan. We're scheduling it in my diary for full recording, January, February, March. So hopefully, that's all how it will play out.
Exciting. All right, let's dive in. The next sort of chapter I want to get into here is the impact, diving into your mission. So clearly, you're affecting change through social media instead of through the government. I would love to get the inside story as to what happened when you tried to become a politician, Simon.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, when I told my company, right, I don't need money anymore. I've got all this knowledge in business. What shall I do? And so I went through the whole gambit of like start another company. What would that look like? What would I do? What would I like to do? I made a list of things I love, things I hate. I started writing a book because I just always wanted to do that. And then I think the one thing that kind of crossed my mind is, I want the education system to be updated. It's the same as it was when I was at school. People come out, they don't know how money works, and they don't know how to build a business, and it's all teachable. So sales is teachable. Introvert, extrovert, doesn't matter. You can be a salesperson. You just different ways of doing it depending on your personality. If to build a brand, everyone can do it. You just need to be taught how it works. How cash flow works, how what is an asset, what is a liability. All of this can be taught, and it's not taught in schools even now. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I thought, what is the easiest way, in theory, to fix it? Become education minister or get into politics and affect change from inside the system that's meant to work for the people, right? So then I hired a political advisor to tell me how do I get elected? How does it work? And wow, what a cesspool! Like I got the complete insight into how it all works, and it is just awful. It's basically the basic principle is you have to lie to people to get elected. That's it. You have to look at what's popular, and then you have to say it to get elected. So it's all done based on data. And I just like, well, what if I have a belief system, for example, that we shouldn't have private schools, and that we should make sure people aren't forced into university and even curtail the power of the university system. Everybody has to go to university now. That's what it's become. So people that don't even know what they want to do go to university, get into debt, spend 4 years of their life in that system, and they're learning marketing in university. I'm like, what the hell? If you want to learn marketing, go work in a company that has marketing needs, or start a marketing agency of your own. Like, what the hell? 4 years of your life learning marketing. Like, and I have interviewed someone coming out of university recently with a marketing degree and said, what are the 5 ways you make money on TikTok? No idea.
Yeah.
How does the algorithm work on YouTube from a marketing point of view? No idea.
Yeah.
They're teaching them about pets.com that didn't work in the 90s. I'm like, brilliant.
All
That's
the
useful.
things.
It's not useful. It's not even relevant.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I thought, okay, I'll become a politician. And then I think it took me about 6 weeks. I went to two political events for Labour and Conservatives, and I was just like, this is like weird. And then I basically realised that probably to put a fire out in a house, you can't do it from inside the house. You have to do it from outside the house. So why don't I just try and help people get educated, help people learn business from outside the house?
Yeah.
Now I have a platform that probably combine more than all the politicians in Parliament or something. So it's probably more impactful just doing it the way I'm doing it from a. That's probably why Elon Musk isn't in politics. It's just easier sometimes to build something that helps people that isn't affected by the bullshit of politics.
Wow. Is that door completely shut in your mind with affecting change through government, or do you think that now that you have amassed so much influence that you have a better chance of making change?
No, I'm very happy to talk to these people in politics. I just yet haven't spoken to someone that genuinely wants to solve the problem. I mean, the education system is now 100 years old from its present design. This kind of get an A means success, memorization means you're clever.
Yeah.
It's 100 years now. We already know the results are in. It's not a good system.
Yeah.
And so it's going to get even worse with AI and all the rest of it. But Google came along. We don't need to remember these things. We're wasting our memory on the wrong things. So
Mm,
we know it. Everybody knows it.
mm,
And every political party in the last 100 years has been in power. So why have they not changed it?
mm,
So I'm not relying on them or hopeful,
mm,
but I do speak to number 10 quite frequently, and I do have dialogue. I'm definitely not shutting the door on any sort of political connection or conversation, but I'm just not waiting for them.
mm.
Uh, and when it suits them to use me, they'll contact me, I'm sure. But when I, to actually affect change, I'm yet to see like true grassroots wish to do that. But I'm hopeful. In the meantime, I don't need them anyway to fix the things I want to
Yeah,
fix.
absolutely. Beyond the number of total followers that you've amassed on social media in recent years, is there any other way that you're measuring the impact that you're having beyond the viral clips that we see online?
Well, we measure it by different things. I mean, of course, someone has a dream and we put it up. The last video got 57 million views. So that person's business comes alive. So that's one measure, right? I mean, then the people, 57 million people have watched that video. So you, we hope that 1% of those people think, oh, maybe I'll start my dream. Or another 1% think, well, what is my dream? And then maybe one day they come up with something that makes the world a better place. So it is a bit like the measuring the impact of a TV show.
Yeah.
Okay, like David Attenborough talking about the planet. How much of an impact has he had? Has it meant that we're reduced climate change? I think it takes time. Education is a process, and so we also measure it by, you know, what's the community internally. So we now have a platform called helpbank.com, which we built, which has 152,000 people on it, successful people on it that are helping people with their dreams. So we also measure it that way. It's not just the views on the social media channels, but it's also how big is the community committed to what we call take four, right? And take four is taking 4 minutes each day to help one person without any expectation of anything in return.
Mm,
So if we have 152,000 people all doing that every day, that's a great and second metric,
mm,
because I can't help everybody. Even if the content goes viral every day, I still won't help everybody. So I think it is a community effort to help people. And so we built a platform not just to help people with Help Bank, but to help people.
mm,
And we now measure it by, okay, how many people have pledged today to take 4 minutes to help someone? And if
mm,
I can get all 8 million people who are following me to also pledge to take 4 minutes each day to help someone without any expectation of anything in return, then, we're starting to have scalable impact beyond me.
mm. I love that, Simon. So inspiring, so understandable why you're in the position that you're in, Simon. Yeah, it's amazing. And obviously always fantastic to hear you speak about this. So you did mention before about the business that you sold, about a decade ago now, I guess. You had a marketing agency like myself. Unlike myself, you managed to sell it for millions and millions of dollars. So I think it's important to I'd love to get in your own words, your take on the whole risk subject in entrepreneurship. So you say there's a lot that you can teach. You can teach people how to sell, you can teach people how to build a brand. That risk tolerance is something that I think people need to feel more comfortable with internally. And of course, it's easier to be brave when you have a safety net. So if we think about the likes of, the staircase that you bought for 25K or the amount of money that you've invested in the Help Bank mission so far, What can you tell people who you're preaching to go out there and take a risk on their dream?
Yeah, well, risk is a really interesting subject, and it's something I thought about a lot. I think that risk is a negative word, and it shouldn't be. It should be a positive word. So if you have the chance to take risk, you're lucky. I think there's an interesting nuance around risk. So when I was younger, I I didn't take a risk. I had no choice, which is actually really good. Like I sometimes say to people, if you've got no money, you've got nothing, you've got a competitive advantage. You don't even realize it. Like if you've got nothing, your risk level is lower. It's people in middle class that get trapped most of the time. They have enough that they're comfortable that they don't want to take a risk. And often those are the people I meet who never made their dream happen and live with the worst thing you could ever live with, which is regret. And so, I'd rather take a risk and not live with regret. And so I think, however, there are different levels of risk. When you're young, you should definitely take as much risk as you can, right? Because your cost of living are low, your expectations of life, as far as having a fancy hotel room when you stay somewhere, you don't need that, right? But when you're young, you just don't need all this fancy shit. And so as you get older, the pressure builds, especially when you have kids. That changes the dynamic. Like until I had a kid, I didn't know, but like that really changes you go very unselfish when you have a kid. It's all about the kid. So when you don't have a kid, you have so much freedom. But I think there's a middle ground where you make enough and you can have an okay life that you learn to not take as much risk anymore. And that's where I think it's dangerous. But I think on the other side, like well, now I know, like if the more risk you take, the luckier you get. It's got nothing to do with hard work. See, people are told the harder you work, the luckier you get. And we could get into conspiracy theories why that's in the subconscious of everybody, but it's not true. It's not true. I made the most amount of money when I wasn't working hard, right? I
Mm,
made the most amount of money when I took risk and
mm,
hired other people to do certain things, right? I made the most amount of money when I worked less hard, right? So this thing we're taught subconsciously, I don't even know where it comes from. Like the harder we work, the luckier we get. It's wrong. And I
mhm,
think the honest truth is the more risk you take, the luckier you get. And if you live by that, then what happens is I do this now. I seek out risk. I'm looking for it. And if I don't feel like it's risky, I don't do it. Like I've launched a book, it's risky. What if no one buys it? And Simon Squibb, no one cares about your book, mate. It's in the bin, discounted to £5. No one cares. There's a risk there, right? It's a personal brand risk. If I don't release it, I'm never going to have that. That's never going to happen to me. So I think there's something about it. I really like taking that risk and leaning into it. And I think that's partly why I'm successful. And
mm,
I've built up the muscle. It's a bit like going to the gym. It is a muscle. It's a risk muscle.
mm,
And you have to build it up if you want to be successful. And the way to build it up is remember where it came from, right? The original design of the feeling of fear came from this concept of like a lion is coming towards you. You feel fear and you have to survive. And that fear makes you run faster, think differently, and survive. And so it gives you an adrenaline and an excitement in life that makes you feel alive. And so and gives you superpowers. So I'm always trying to turn on the fear muscle, and it's getting harder as I've just built up my tolerance. But I
mm,
think once you learn to control that superpower, you don't see it as a negative anymore. You want to feel it. You want to take risks. You want to feel fear. Uh,
mm.
so there.
On this note, whilst I appreciate you've had your fair share of hardships, I'm also aware that in terms of the social hierarchy, you sit at the top of the food pyramid as a cis, white, straight, 50-year-old man. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that as well, in terms of, okay, you take risk, you build the entrepreneurial muscle. I've heard you say, if you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. But of course, we will have different tailwinds and headwinds that work for us and against us. So, do you recognize those? What do you say to other people that are in minorities, are in other communities?
Yeah, thanks for making me walk through a minefield suddenly with this one. Yeah, I think it's going to be very
Warming
tricky.
you up for the past half hour, Simon.
Yeah. So, well, let me first of all say that luck is definitely a skill, but there is a caveat to it. And I've studied luck in general, which is a pretty interesting thing. Like, did I get lucky or was I unlucky? And it turns out that my unlucky things turned out to be lucky things, and my lucky things turned out to be unlucky things. So like 1% of your life, I don't care how hard you work, you will not be able to affect it. Basically, where you're born matters, right? Statistically, we know that if you're born in Silicon Valley, the chance of you getting your startup funded are much higher, right? So, like where you are born, you can't hustle to get born in a certain location. It gives you certain advantages. So, absolutely, absolutely, that's true. But let's also not forget, I was a homeless man, and men are low on the list of rehousing, right? And I would argue this is probably right. First of all, there shouldn't be homelessness in 2024. It's ridiculous. We've created it, and I blame the banks for that. But that's another subject for another time. But bottom line is that I was not given any priority as a white male. It's like, well, you're a man. What are you doing homeless? I'm 15 years old. I'm homeless. I'm like, well, you know, pregnant women, women with babies, with women with children, and women come first. You won't get a home for 2 years.
Hmm.
Now I'm not playing a violin for myself. I'm just explaining that sometimes, what looks like an advantage can also be a disadvantage depending on your luck cycle, right? So, but I look at it now as thank God I didn't get caught in a social system, because I know now that if I was given a house and given some money, the rules are you're not allowed to work, right? So I would never have started a company at 15 years old if I'd been given the so-called privilege, right? So I was born in England, in a country where in theory there's a good social system, but because I was born a white male, I was last on the list to get any help, right? So am I lucky or am I unlucky? Right? It's a minefield, this subject, which making me walk on it. But I think that it's really interesting. There's one of my favorite stories is the story of two young men, two boys that were born into a family where their father is a drunk. And one grows up to be really successful and the other grows up to be a drunk. And there was a documentary done on them. Why was one successful and why was one a failure? Why was one a drunk? And they were both asked the same question. Why do you think you are where you are today? And the one that is a drunk said, well, I'm here today because my father is an alcoholic. And the one that's really successful was asked, why are you here today? And he said, I'm here today because my father was an alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. I love that, Simon, and well done on navigating that minefield that I made you walk through there. I would kind of summarize that for the listeners here is so much of it is the stories that we tell ourselves. And this almost goes full circle back to those fears and those blockers that have shocked you the most when you go out there interviewing strangers on the street, which is like, are you getting in your own way? And which parts of the story that you're telling yourself are serving you or going against you? So Simon, you've come out of it alive on the other side. Well done. I love to hear that. All right, I've got one last question that I need to ask you before we move over to the audience Q&A. Again, shout out to everyone on live if you're still with us. I appreciate you tuning in and I hope you're enjoying this conversation with Simon. All right, last question from me is I've had a teeny taste of my phone blowing up just by letting my followers know that I'm interviewing you at the moment, Simon. How on earth, on a practical level, do you tune out the noise? I can't imagine the amount of notifications that you get on a constant basis.
Yeah, I don't tune it out. So I think when you're doing something you love, I don't mind it. So, you know, uh, my neighbor is Ricky Gervais, and one of the things he said to me once, which I really love, I said, "How do you deal with fame?" And he said, "Simon, if I want alone time and I don't want to be bothered, I just don't go out." So I have a lovely home, and when I need time for myself, I just do that. But otherwise, to be honest, I really like people. And I actually like going on my phone. I reply to all the comments on the social media posts myself. I enjoy it. I enjoy trying to understand what people need and doing what I can to help people. Um, I think that I have a big team that help me also. So I don't feel overloaded and I don't feel overwhelmed. The only thing I feel sometimes is, damn it, how can I help more people and scale up what I'm doing? And that's why I built helpbank.com. I wanted to build a system that could help people that wasn't just me.
Yeah.
And it's, I I never feel tired because I'm doing something that I really think is important. And I get a lot of energy back when I see people having a better life because of what we're doing. And that's why I always tell people, like, a lot of people are like, I can't manage a lot of people, they say, right? It stresses me out. I'm like, well, you don't manage people, manage purpose. Like if you have a purpose, it's like completely different energy. Work takes on a completely different meaning. And, I say all that, my phone number leaked on the internet. So I had to change my number, but during the time of that being leaked on the internet, I used to get 200 phone calls a day. That was
Wow.
pretty stressful, especially as I had to keep the phone because I was using it for lots of personal banking stuff. But I changed it now, so that's okay. But there's always moments, and I, there were people knocking on my house door quite a lot, but I put security in place now, so it's a bit more private.
Wow.
So there are things you need, precautions you need to take, and I'm learning this because I hate to say it, but I'm getting famous. So it's like,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
I'm learning to be a bit more careful with management. But that's more around making sure my family is safe.
Yeah.
And me personally, I don't feel overwhelmed, and I really like people, and I don't feel like it's too much. Although I can only do so much in a day, and I do manage my day quite carefully. I exercise, I spend time with my son, I do things with friends, and I do my work. But I try to give myself that balance so I can sustain this work.
I love that, Simon. I think a key lesson there is do what energizes you so that you can sustain that momentum. Because, I
Yes.
think there's so much around time management and not enough around energy management. And as a leader, as a founder, whatever mission you're on, you've got to sustain your energy levels to keep going. So, I guess that's the argument for do what you love because at least it can continue to energize you.
Yeah, not
Simon,
everybody agrees with me on that, by the way. Again, a lot of people don't think, oh, you got to do where you can make money. But at the
yeah.
end of the day, if you do something you love, it won't feel like work, and you can do it better than anyone else. Every business I've ever built, I've enjoyed it, and I think that's why I've been successful in them.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Simon. All right, well, right on cue, just as we're approaching quarter two. So I've gathered a few questions from my followers. I'm sure you've had a load come in on your side on live as well. I'm just going to set up my phone while I do this. I'm going to try and multitask. I'm going to ask you the first question from one of our listeners, and then I'll sort out my phone. I need to do one thing after the other. All right. So from Cosmin Golash, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He's asked a fantastic question that I've put at the top of the list here. Simon, what is one piece of advice that you wish you had received when you were starting out that you believe could make a substantial difference for new entrepreneurs today?
Lots of things. If I'm saying one thing, I'd probably say you've got to think, why not think big? There's a misconception that a small business is easier to run than a big business. Build a big business. It's a lot easier to run a big business than a small business. And I built both, and I've learned the hard way. But I realized that the bigger the business, the easier that life becomes. So a lot of people get stuck in small businesses, and if they stop, it all stops. Hire, bring people in, give them equity, share the business with people. Don't be greedy. I'd rather have 10% of a successful business than 100% of a failure. I'd rather have 10% of a business than having to work all the hours God send and never stop. And if it's you stop, it stops, right? So everybody working on Help Bank has equity, for example. And I want to build a platform bigger than LinkedIn. Why would I build just a Simon Squibb social media channel? That's boring. It's too small. You've got to think big. And if you do, you'll be free because you can bring in talent to help you run it. If you have a small business, you can't. And people don't think that. They get, again, some weird, I don't know where this stuff comes from, but people think running a small business, I'll keep it small. It makes it more manageable. No, it traps you.
Hmm.
Go big. Don't create a job for yourself. Build something that gives you freedom.
Yeah. What I would argue is, yes, you've got the thinking big, but just linking back to your point before on how much of the fear factor holds people launching their own business to begin with, it's another level of risk tolerance to then take a small business to a big business.
Yeah,
So,
but it's also a lack of knowledge.
mhm,
Again, like, who's teaching people this stuff? If you've started a small plumbing business, who's taught you how to scale it? Nobody. School didn't teach you. And that's the problem.
mm,
And so it's more fear comes often from ignorance.
mm,
Yeah, people are fearful of change because they don't know what it's really going to mean,
mm,
right? People are fearful of crypto and blockchain because they don't really know. It's called a scam because people don't understand it. Like I
mm,
think I think educate yourself and understand that the top 100 rich people in the world, they didn't make their money in property. They made their money starting a company where they own equity in that company. And in the ideal world, you don't have to work at that company in the long run,
Mm,
right? And if you build a business with that in mind, you're building a business to have freedom, not building a business to just have another job that traps you.
mm,
So it's just ignorance of how money works, and it's ignorance and around building it. But once you understand how to build it, and once you've done it, like for me, like bringing in talent into my company, it's so liberating. Like if you bring in people that can do things better than you, like I would hired a good accountant, I've got a good COO. These people make my life better, and the business scales infinitely
mm.
better than me just thinking small. So, but I didn't know that in the early days.
Other than just not thinking small and having those bigger ideas and aiming for a bigger business, what's one tip that you can just share here now on the podcast? Appreciate people can go and watch a 3 hour YouTube video and buy your book. But while I've got you, is there one thing that you can share to help people go from that small business to big business, the scale up?
Well, I think it's really cliche and people won't listen, but I this is the truth. Have a purpose to your business. It's beyond just making money. You don't just fill a market gap. Have purpose, have passion, solve a problem in the world. Don't just make money. Money is a made up thing. We've fallen for it as the first virtual reality. It doesn't make us happy, and it will not sustain you in going every day at something that's hard. It needs to be a mission. It needs to have a goal bigger than you. And the other thing I'll say to people, and this is actually what my book's all about. So if I tell you this, you don't need to buy the book. And it's basically like, if you want your dream to happen, help someone else's dream happen first. The kindness and generosity side is totally underestimated as far as making your own life better. When I was young and I was blowing out a birthday cake, I was probably 8 years old. My granddad said to me, make the wish you're about to make for someone else, it will come true. If you blow those candles out and make the wish for yourself, it won't come true. And it
Oh,
stuck with me, like it is about helping other people. And if you can think about it that way, you'll be happier.
shout out to Grandpa Squibble.
Yeah,
I love that. He's the OG inspirational speaker at
yeah,
five-year-old Simon's birthday party
yeah,
in the late 70s. I
yeah.
love that, Simon. I'm so tempted, I'm so tempted to do like a 3 hour conversation on each of these, but I'm going to move on to the next question here from Cien Solon, who I noticed has caught your attention on LinkedIn as well, founder of Launch Lemonade, talking about AI. She's doing amazing stuff on there. She's asked, I mean, it's a pretty big question, so I'm not sure how much we can encapsulate this one, but she would like to know, Simon, what is your life philosophy? If you can distill it down into just a sentence or two.
Well, basically, a lot of people think you should live give and take. I'll help you if you help me. That's what people believe. I don't believe that's true. That's not how we're built. We're meant to do give without take. That's my life philosophy. I will help someone if I can, and I don't need anything back. And I think everyone should live this way. Now, a lot of people would say, I can't afford to live this way. You can give 4 minutes each day and help someone without any expectation of anything in return. You can listen to someone's small business and post it on your Instagram stories. It won't cost you anything. You can get them a client today and change someone's life. Give without take. Help people in any way you can, even 4 minutes, liking their post, putting a comment on anything to try and make someone else's life better today. And that's what I live by. I live by give without take. I don't. Someone offered me £10,000 to help them for 1 hour, and I said no and help them for free. Now, maybe you could argue I can afford to do that, but who wants to give away £10,000? No one doesn't want £10,000. I don't care how rich you are. The point is, it felt good to help that person without an agenda. I
Yeah.
think we're naturally that way, like we used to live in tribes of 5,000 helping each other. And we've lost this. We've forgotten that we're meant to live in communities where we help each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially I'm tuning in from London as well at the moment. I definitely feel that more than, living in other parts of the world where this is like a city of almost 10 million people. And yeah, what's my community? What's my tribe? How are we helping each other? I think also just to mention that helping each other can become really addictive. So just to add to your mission there, Simon, is it gives you a confidence boost. Like walking up to strangers, helping them out, it makes you feel good. You want to keep doing more of it. So replace some of your unhealthy habits with that one.
Well, that's what one of the things we're doing with Help Bank is go on Help Bank every day and help someone for 4 minutes will literally make you sleep better.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't need medication, all this. Half the time, it's like you're just not doing that one thing that we're naturally meant to do, which is just give someone a bit of help today. It is, it's a slightly slower release of endorphins, and the dopamine hit you get from LinkedIn, we're trying to avoid that. But the dopamine hit you get from us is it takes time. But when someone you help a month later says, "Oh, thank you, my life's better, and now I can take my kid on holiday for the first time," or what, like that, that is a real human dopamine hit. It's not
That's
artificial.
amazing. Yeah.
Uh, and it's naturally in us to see that someone in our tribe is happier, having a better life. And people need to do it and try it. And most people think they can't afford to do it. That's why I say, take four. That's my kind of hashtag lately. Go for it. Like just take 4 minutes and help someone and try to build it up more and more and more. You will sleep better and be happier for it.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of people would be surprised at just how grateful and how thankful people are to get that help and then how much they pay it forward. I think a lot of people have the fear that they're going to be the ones missing out by helping others. But actually, when you see that impact that you have and the knock-on effect of it, I think a lot of people would be pleasantly surprised.
Don't have any expectation of anything in
Yeah,
return. Because that's where the
yeah,
problems come. That's when
exactly.
sayings like "no good deed goes unpunished" kicks in, because people
Right.
did something and they were expecting something back and it didn't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
And that's the mistake people make. Just do it purely from your heart. Do it with no expectation. It is a revolution in my mind, this idea. And I don't know how it's become a revolution, because it is actually how things used to be. The problem is the tax man doesn't like the idea, because the tax man quite like, I help you and then you help me and we do a transaction. It's very taxable, right? But if I help you and don't charge, there's no money coming into the tax man. Equally, now you can afford to help someone because you haven't had to pay me, vice versa. You see what I mean? Like, so it's actually not in the capitalistic system's best interest for this to
yeah,
take off.
exactly.
But I genuinely think it's how we're naturally built as people.
Mm.
We're meant to help each other, and it's not all about what you can get out of it in that moment.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, Simon, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I've got one final question that I want to end this interview on. But before I do, are there any good questions that are coming in on your side on the live that you'd like
Right, do you have
to?
any questions for me? I mean, most of the people on my live know me and have asked a lot of questions. Um, I'm looking now. Any questions? Most of my feeds filled up with people telling me their dreams. Uh, so I've asked them.
Is there a dream coming through that you'd like to make happen live?
Uh, I'm reading. I actually met someone yesterday who told me a dream. I haven't put up the dream on our channel yet, but I really like it. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just find that humans have all the ideas to the world's problems in their brain. Like, I don't know where it all comes from, but all the solutions to all the things that are going on in the world that are bad, we have the solutions. And yesterday, this young lady was talking about, she works in a coffee shop behind the till. And I asked her a dream, and she was like, "Oh, my dream would be to help everybody be, self-contained and be able to grow their own food." And initially, it sounds like a crazy idea, but actually, as so I grow food in my garden now, it's amazing what you can actually grow. And so, kind of giving everyone the opportunity, even if you live in a flat, to grow their own food and have that experience. I really got excited about her idea. So that's actually what I've been working on this morning, like how to help her idea come to life. And I think, yeah, those things, those sorts of ideas that I wasn't really thinking about that, but then I'm like, that is a really good thing to do.
That is such
Uh,
a great idea. What comes to mind as well, I've got some affiliation with the VC industry. And it's funny because my role is a founding VC Scout member for Ada Ventures. And it's funny, these Scout programs are set up, within the industry, but they're set up to to maximize the deal flow with the opportunity and find these cool ideas. But like, how many of them are going into cafes or pizza expresses or supermarkets and asking the
totally
people
untapped,
behind the
untapped talent and
counter?
resources. No, no.
Maybe I need to switch up my scout strategy.
And the interesting thing about the demographic that I tend to talk to, like they don't just want it, they need it.
Mm,
I think that's a very key element to being successful.
mm.
If you want to be successful, you really need to need it. Instagram just suddenly closed.
Crash. You're
Um,
breaking the internet, Simon.
no, I know. It has a timer on Instagram. I noticed it stops
That's
after.
annoying. That must be a new thing.
Um, no, I'll leave it. The yeah, I think I'm going to say normal people, but people that that are out there in the world that are totally underrepresented. The Tesco worker and the Ocado delivery driver or the lady in the coffee shop or the person sweeping the street. Like these people work so hard, and if you just give them the opportunity to make their dream happen, they're going to do it, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Simon, thank you, first of all, for making my dream come true. A pleasure to have you. I'm very aware of how busy you are and all the people you're trying to help. So, thank you for making me one of those people. I really appreciate you coming on my show. My final question to end this interview on what a lot of people want to know, the number one question that I definitely got in my DMs and my comments is Simon, what is your dream?
So I have a couple of dreams. First of all, I want to update the education system. I want to give people access to financial knowledge and how business works, and give people another option when they leave school, which is to start a business of their own if they want. I want people to understand that where they work, they should probably own equity if they can, and understand how selling time is not scalable. So my dream is for financial education to be mainstream, and I want people to know they've got more choices. Yeah, apart from that, I think I'd love it if Help Bank became a competitor to LinkedIn, and people, if they need help, they can go there and get help that they need. But that feeds into the education system piece, because hopefully the Help Bank can also be the education piece if people need it. So yeah, that's my dream.
Absolutely amazing. Well, Simon, I would love to help you make your dream happen, which is making other people's dreams happen. It sounds like the world's best pyramid scheme.
Really?
Not a pyramid scheme,
You
just a
sound very
carrot.
dodgy.
Simon, thank you so much. What an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait for the TV show to come out next year. Everyone go and buy the book, watch the video, join Help Bank, and obviously we'll link everywhere in the show notes so you can go and help support our mission. Simon,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Take care, you too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.